Welcome to Hood War Stories. In this episode, I'll be discussing the Geraghty Loma gang. Geraghty Loma is a Mexican-American gang located in East Los Angeles. City Terrace is a steepy, hilly area south of the 10 freeway. It was once an exclusive suburb in the 1920s for upper-middle-class Angelenos who were attempting to escape the urban downtown area. Russian, Irish, Italian, and Japanese immigrants built beautiful homes on the sides of these hills with views of the downtown area. Over the years, the neglect of downtown pushed the middle-class settlers further out. As the neighborhood began to run down, crimes, drugs, and gangs took up residence in the community. Latino families settled in this area in the 1940s. Initially, there was disharmony in the neighborhood between Mexicans born in the U.S. and those who migrated from Mexico, who were referred to as paisas. Street gangs began to form in the area. One of the major ones was Geraghty Loma. By the 1970s, law enforcement began referring to this area as the Mexican Alps. Confusing narrow streets crisscrossed the hills, which were choked with overgrown trees and bushes. Street lights were few and far in between. Geraghty is the name of a street in the high ground of the Mexican Alps. Several of their members were among the founders and very early members of the Mexican Mafia. Geraghty Loma took great pride in the fact that it stood alone against the surrounding gangs. They had no allies and warred continuously with all the local gangs. Enemy gangs who tried to attack Geraghty had to venture up the hills through a maze of tiny streets up to Chica Loma, which means Little Hill in Spanish. This was the steep hillside in the 900 block of Geraghty Street that the gang used for its headquarters. The approach to Chica Loma was dangerous, with perfect ambush sites all along the way. Carloads of enemy gang members were often victims of these ambushes, finding themselves trapped in Geraghy's barrio. They would often lose their direction in attempting to escape the Geraghty members that were on the hill. And if they got out on foot, their chances of survival dropped almost to nothing. When the Geraghty members hung out, they posted lookouts along every approach. They would build a campfire, then smoke weed and drink beer while discussing gang business. Chica Loma was a very steep hillside with ruins of foundations of old houses that were hidden in the tall grass of the slope. Any gang foolish enough to rush the gang members on this hillside would have the disadvantage of running up the hill while taking fire from Geraghty members, firing from behind the low block and concrete walls. Chunks of concrete and bottles would also rain down on them. Geraghty members were excellent at disappearing from the hillsides through numerous hidden trails and pathways, only to appear again from another ambush point. Even on the flat land, Geraghty was tactically aggressive. They were always armed or in close proximity to their weapons. They were among the first gangs to use assault rifles. Their weapon of choice was a .30 caliber carbine. In one incident, 2 Geraghty gang pickup trucks arrived at the rival Juarez gang's hangout. Several Geraghty gang members chased the Juarez gang into a backyard that did end into a cliff face. The hit team acted like a firing squad, with the Juarez gang members up against the wall. They then shot down several Juarez gang members and jumped back into the pickup truck, then sped away. SEB units were often assigned Geraghty territory with little to no success. SEB stood for Special Enforcement Bureau. The SEB units commonly wore tan and green police helmets to differentiate themselves from the station patrol units. The gang members nicknamed them turtle heads. From the hillsides, gang members threw heavy stones and bottles at the SEB units. When the deputies gave pursuit on foot up the steep hills, the gang members would disappear into the darkness. When Geraghty gang members would see a patrol unit driving up the hill, they would taunt and yell insults down at the deputies, knowing the deputies could not reach them before they could disappear into the night. One Sunday evening, on January 22nd, 1978, Jimmy, who was from 18th Street, was standing on a street corner in East LA. Mauricio and Jose then drove up in Mauricio's car. Jimmy asked them where they was from, and they replied 18th Street. Mauricio and Jose then suggested that they all go beat up another gang, and when Jimmy said okay, they told him to get in the car, which he did. After Jimmy was in the car and it was underway, Mauricio and Jose informed Jimmy that they were in fact from the Geraghty gang. Jimmy asked to be let out the car, but they refused. They then drove up into the hills overlooking City Terrace Park, where they stopped on Beulah Circle. They then told Jimmy to get out the car, which he did. They twisted his arms behind his back and took him off the road, down a hill to a tree on a vacant lot. Upon reaching the tree, a handgun was then produced. It was then pointed at Jimmy and fired multiple times. The first bullet struck Jimmy in the neck, causing him to fall. Jimmy's eyes remained open, and Jose told the other members to shoot him again. He did so, this time hitting Jimmy in the cheek. Jimmy closed his eyes, and the Geraghty members left him for dead. While lying on the ground, Jimmy heard the car drive away. And about 5 minutes later, he yelled for help. A man came and summoned a sheriff deputy. Jimmy's injuries required his hospitalization for 5 months and left him paralyzed without sensation below the middle of his chest. Mauricio and Jose were each found guilty of attempted murder. Jose was sentenced to 7 years, and Mauricio was sentenced to a total of 5 years. By the 1980s, Geraghty was one of the largest and most violent gangs in East LA. The Geraghty gang derived much of its reputation and power from its dominance on the area's high ground. They continued to war with all surrounding gangs during this period. Fast forward to October 20th, 2005. Ruben and Jaime had a verbal confrontation at Cesar Chavez School and planned to fight the next day. Jaime was from the Geraghty gang. Ruben was associated with the Maravillas, a rival gang. Jaime told Geraghty gang members that he was quote-unquote almost jumped by Ruben and needed assistance. The following day, Ruben arrived at school in gang attire. 2 Latino men parked in front of the school in a customized Honda. When classes let out, Ruben left the parking lot driving a white Ford Explorer. 4 of his classmates were passengers in the vehicle. Ruben warned the others that a car was following them. As the customized Honda pulled up next to them, Jesse, who was in the back seat, pointed a rifle at Ruben. He fired 2 shots, fatally wounding Ruben. Freddie, who was a passenger in the Ford Explorer, identified Jesse from a photo lineup. Jesse Valenzuela, from Geraghty, Loma, was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life, plus 25 years state prison on firearm enhancements. One of Geraghty Loma's rivals is the City Terrace gang. On August 7th, 2011, at around 1:30 a.m., Martha drove to Duke's liquor store. Martha's passengers included her husband Joel, her stepson Santiago, and Santiago's friend Ernie. Duke's liquor store is located at the north end of territory belonging to the Geraghty Loma gang, about a quarter mile from the border of City Terrace gang territory. Geraghty Loma is City Terrace's main rival. Their continuous border was a source of tension between the 2 gangs. Ernie and Santiago went into the store to buy beer, while Martha and Joel waited in the van. Santiago was walking with a crutch. Just after Ernie and Santiago entered the liquor store, a pickup truck parked at the front entrance. Geraghty, who's from City Terrace gang, got out of the truck and went into the liquor store, where he appeared to exchange words with either Ernie or Santiago. Geraghty then made his purchase and left the store. Immediately afterward, Santiago and Ernie completed their purchase and left the store as well. As they were walking out the front entrance, Geraghty was sitting in the truck's passenger seat and was in the act of pulling the door closed. Santiago then made a gesture toward Geraghty and appeared to say something to him. In response, Geraghty and Jose, who was sitting in the rear passenger seat, immediately got out of the truck. Initially, Geraghty and Jose both approached Santiago, who was standing just a few steps away. Geraghty then punched Santiago in the face and took his crutch. Santiago began running down the sidewalk in the direction of Martha's van. Meanwhile, Jose turned and approached Ernie, who had been standing slightly behind Santiago. Jose began to pistol whip Ernie and kick him. Ernie dropped to the ground. Jose kicked Ernie again, then joined Geraghty in chasing Santiago down the sidewalk. With Jose running right behind him, Geraghty chased Santiago while swinging the crutch at him. As the 3 men were running down the sidewalk, Joel got out of Martha's van and joined the fray in an effort to protect Santiago. The melee spilled over into the intersection. Joel and Jose apparently began to fight, and then Jose fired his gun 6 times at Joel, hitting him twice. Joel then ran back to the van, which sped off. She took Joel to the hospital, where he was treated for gunshot wounds to his leg and hip. Martha ended up testifying on what she saw that day. Jose Gutierrez and Geraghty Jacoba from Barrio City Terrace were convicted of premeditated attempted murder with gang and firearm enhancements. Jose was sentenced to 17 years plus 25 years to life for the firearm enhancements. Geraghty was sentenced to 8 years plus a life term for the attempted premeditated murder. Over the following years, the constant gang wars took out many of Geraghty's best soldiers. About a half dozen continued to gangbang while being confined to wheelchairs, but eventually, surrounded by so many enemies, with no allies to come to their aid, Geraghty's prominence faded. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.